Hello, ready for chapter 7. I lost my page yesterday and couldn't find it, so my daughter's made me a bookmark. Quite a nice little thing to do if you've got some spare time. Chapter 7. Which way? All right then, you can come with me, said Coco haughtily, as they scrambled up the tree roots into the copse. I just need to comb my hair before we go. It's not me coming with you, señorita. It's you coming with me. If you say so, muttered Coco, turning back towards the house to get her comb. And you don't have time to comb your hair? From what you say, señorita, we have no time to lose. Let's go. Vamos. But what about? Forget the hair, Eduardo interrupted. You're the kind of chick who looks good with or without a comb. Now come on, it's 6 o'clock already. 6 o'clock? Coco gasped. Sure, you've been asleep all day, Chiquita. Now move. Going as fast as I can, said Coco indignantly. They squeezed under a fence and into the street. Wait here. Eduardo disappeared behind a bush. Soon he re-emerged, bottom first, dragging a dull scooter with his front paws. Coco stared at it. I'm not going on that. You are if you want to get there before Fuzzy is finger food. He held the handlebars and put one foot on the scooter. Now jump on. Reluctantly, Coco jumped on behind him and wrapped her front paws around his neck. Ah, don't strangle me, Eduardo shouted. Put your hands here, around my waist. They wobbled along the pavement. You've got to use your foot, Eduardo grumbled. I'm doing all the work. Let's scoot. Coco soon got the hang of it, and it wasn't long before they reached Upper Street. It was getting dark, but the area was still bright and busy and scary compared to Middleton Crescent. Coco felt quite frightened, but for some reason she didn't want to admit how she felt to Eduardo. Eduardo, on the other hand, seemed quite at home on the crowded street. Keep to the edge of the pavement. It's safer that way, he advised Coco. She moved the scooter towards the curb, thinking that's what he meant. No, caramba! You can be squashed by the cars there. I mean, here, by the shops, in the shadows, where we can't be seen. Coco swerved across the pavement, trying to make sure she and Eduardo weren't trodden on by someone rushing to the theatre, or the cinema, or maybe even to Scarlet Cleaver's new restaurant. She felt a chill run through her little bones when she thought about Fuzzy. They must get there soon. The scooter skidded to a halt. Immediately ahead of them, a red carpet stretched across the pavement from the curb to the doorway. Coco looked up. 111 Upper Street. The Meat Cleaver, she read. They had arrived. Have they rolled out the red carpet for me? Coco thought aloud, scratching a rosette in puzzlement. Of course not, answered Eduardo. They don't know you're coming here tonight. True, she said thoughtfully. Then I wonder who it's for. A film star, maybe, suggested Eduardo. Coco stroked the carpet lovingly. It was thick and deep and soft. Her eyes shone. No, Eduardo, not a film star, someone even more famous. Coco rubbed her paws together rapturously. Don't you see? It's for Her Majesty the Queen. On to Chapter 8. What's on the menu? Eduardo looked doubtful, but if she wasn't sure before, Coco knew the moment she stepped from the red carpet into the crowded restaurant that Her Majesty was expected. Ladies with swept-up hair looked lovely in long velvet dresses. Gentlemen with polished shoes and crisp dark suits chatted politely. Waitresses circled around the tables with trays of nibbles and drinks. Coco sighed. She wished she'd brought her tiara. It was just like being back in the dining room at the palace when the ambassador came. Best of all, the sound of beautiful music washed over her like a warm bubble bath. An elegant lady in a long dress was plinking away at a perfectly tuned harp. One used to play rather well, she confided to Eduardo, secretly hoping to impress him. But one is a little out of practice these days. Eduardo gazed at her in amazement. Holy guacamole, señorita! If you don't mind me saying so, you are one crazy cavey. Coco didn't mind being called cavey because it was a posh name for guinea pig. Eduardo had scampered to the side of the room and was making his way stealthily towards the window in the shadow of the skirting board. He stopped and waved at her. Vamos, he hissed. Hurry, let's go. Coco hesitated, then scurried after him, stopping just for a tiny moment in front of a long gilt mirror to check her whiskers. One always had to look one's best for royalty. Where are you going? She panted crossly, catching up with him eventually. We should be lining up. Eduardo raised a shaggy eyebrow. Lining up? What for? Coco couldn't believe he didn't know. With the other guests, the crowd had begun to form 2 lines either side of the door. When the Queen arrives, she greets everyone. Very nice. Eduardo scratched his head. What do we do? He said. While she's doing that. I curtsy, you bow. Coco was beside herself. Eduardo didn't seem to know anything. The Queen would be here any minute. OK. Eduardo took a running jump at the curtains. Show me later. Later? Squealed Coco, appalled. After I get the menu. He caught hold of the curtain tie and started swinging higher and higher until eventually he threw himself through the air onto the gleaming white tablecloth. Don't spoil the napkins, Coco wailed. Don't worry, señorita, they still look like swans. Eduardo poked his nose over the edge and grinned at her. The food doesn't look so good, though, he said, waving the menu at her and pulling a face. What do you mean? I like the sound of the vegetable soup, he said, but the main course makes me sick. He climbed astride the menu and glided down beside her. Read it, señorita. Congelado de Indias, Coco said slowly, struggling with the unfamiliar words. Pan-fried or grilled to your liking. Is it fish? She asked, looking up. I'm not keen on fish either, she confided. No, señorita, Eduardo said, rummaging around in his satchel. It's not fish. Congelado de India is Spanish for guinea pig. Guinea pig? Coco's mouth fell open. She'd been so excited about seeing the Queen she'd forgotten all about Fuzzy. At least she hadn't quite forgotten all about Fuzzy, but she hadn't remembered him. That is to say, she'd almost remembered him, but just as she was about to, she got in a muddle because of the red carpet. But even if she hadn't got in a muddle and she had remembered Fuzzy, she'd never have believed anyone, not even Scarlet Cleaver, would have the nerve to serve up her best friend to the Queen. It was scandalous. Well? Eduardo was looking at her questioningly. Well, what is one waiting for? The kitchen's over there. She pointed to the swing doors where the waitress zipped in and out. Vamos! Before Eduardo could reply, she started to weave her way through the table legs. Guinea pig? Coco thought of Fuzzy. She thought of all the other stolen guinea pigs Terry had found out about on the computer. Coco was sure Her Majesty would understand just this once if she didn't stand in line and curtsy. The swing doors flew open. Waiting until the waitress had clattered past, Coco dodged through, closely followed by Eduardo, who grabbed her and pulled her safely over to the wall. It took Coco a moment or 2 to get used to the heat. It took her a moment or 2 after that to get used to the noise. Scarlet Cleaver's kitchen was not at all like the Bliss's kitchen. The Bliss's kitchen was calm and cosy. Scarlet Cleaver's kitchen was full of bright white light and steel surfaces. A small army of white-coated men and women chopped vegetables and scrubbed dishes. In the centre of the chaos, a tall, pale woman with long, dark hair stood silently, looking at her watch. She wore a tight red dress which swept to the floor, and her lips were the colour of blood. In one hand she held a gleaming chopping knife. Coco shivered. It was Scarlet Cleaver. Silence! The woman shouted suddenly. The room was still. Her Majesty will be here in precisely 3.5 minutes, she announced sharply, and as you know, the Queen is never late. Everyone nodded, including Coco. It's true, you know, she whispered to Eduardo, who clapped his hand over her mouth to shut her up. Allowing for the greeting, curtsying, bowing, sitting down. That gives us approximately 12 minutes to prepare the main dish for cooking. She clapped her hands. Well, what are you waiting for? Go and get them. 2 men ran off. Seconds later they reappeared, pushing a metal trolley laden with cages. Caramba! Eduardo whistled softly. Every single cage was full of terrified guinea pigs of all shapes, sizes and varieties. Scarlet Cleaver raised her chopping knife with a ghastly smile. Just how I like my ingredients. Nice and fresh. She grabbed the first guinea pig by the scruff of its neck and pulled it out of its cage. It was round and brown and fat, with a white crest on its forehead. Coco recognised him at once. It's Fuzzy, she squealed. For goodness sake, Eduardo, do something.